hostages, basically. In a move clearly benefiting private tax preparers, the bill explicitly blocks the IRS from developing certain in-house software tools if they might compete with private services.
Interesting.
And finally, it reinforces taxpayer privacy by raising the penalty for unauthorized disclosure of taxpayer information by IRS employees or contractors.
Okay. So bringing it all together,
Yeah.
what does this all mean beyond the tax code? Because the big, beautiful bill, as we've discussed, isn't just about taxes, right? It includes these major spending and policy shifts that are just as impactful, maybe even more controversial.
You're absolutely right. While it used reconciliation mainly for the tax parts, the budget measures tucked inside are incredibly significant. Huge policy shifts. For instance, it authorizes an additional $150 billion in defense spending over the next decade.
A big boost.
Huge. And it's not just a blank check. It earmarks funds. $29 billion for Navy shipbuilding, $25 billion for a Golden Dome missile defense system, more money for munitions, military tech like drones and AI, nuclear deterrence, improving military housing and bases, especially in the Indo-Pacific. It's a clear signal of enhanced military priorities.
And the other big spending area, border security.
Massive investment there. An unprecedented $170 billion for border security and immigration enforcement. This includes $46.5 billion specifically earmarked for constructing a border wall on the southern border. Funds to expand detention capacity by 100,000 beds. That's a staggering 365% increase in the ICE detention budget.
Wow.
Hiring 10,000 new ICE agents with nearly $30 billion allocated just for recruitment and deportation operations. Plus, more Border Patrol agents, more surveillance tech, support for local law enforcement near the border. And in a highly debated move, it imposes new fees on asylum seekers like a $100 fee just to apply for asylum and increases fees for various visas.
Those are enormous investments in defense and border security. Where is the bill finding money to pay for some of these things, especially when it's also cutting taxes so deeply?
That's the absolute core of the political battle right there. To offset some of these costs, and frankly, to meet the reconciliation rules, which require some deficit impact limits, the BBB makes deep spending cuts elsewhere. Over $1.2 trillion in cuts, primarily from entitlement programs.
Like Medicaid and SNAP?
Exactly. For Medicaid, it introduces work requirements for the very first time nationally. Able-bodied adults, 19 to 64, generally have to work or participate in work activities for at least 80 hours a month to receive benefits, though there are some exemptions. States also have to verify eligibility more frequently and face reduced federal funding if they have high rates of improper payments.
And for SNF food stamps?
Similar tightening. It raises the age cutoff for existing work requirements from 49 up to 64. And it penalizes states that have high error rates in distributing benefits. These are really significant changes to the social safety net.
Major shifts. What about student loans and education spending?
Cuts there, too. It places new limits on federal student loans, capping how much graduate students can borrow annually and over their lifetime. It eliminates certain types of grad PLUS loans. And it directly rescinds funding intended for Biden administration student debt relief measures.
So actively rolling back previous debt relief efforts.
Correct. Beyond those big ones, the bill also repeals or rescinds unspent funds from the 2022 Inflation Reduction Act, cutting climate programs and energy subsidies beyond the IRS funds we already talked about. It halves the budget of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the CFPB. And for 1 year, it prohibits any Medicaid funds from going to Planned Parenthood.
Okay. Any new spending allocations besides defense and border?
A few smaller ones. It sets aside $50 billion for a new rural hospital fund, trying to address closures there, increases spending on some agriculture supports, and it even grants $40 million for that planned National Garden of American Heroes Monument project.
This bill, it certainly sparked a firestorm of debate and really strong reactions. Let's talk about the intense political implications and how it was received across the spectrum.
Oh, yeah. The BBB's passage was, as you said, a textbook example of a highly partisan, highly controversial affair. Absolutely no bipartisan support. It just perfectly highlighted the sharp ideological divide in Washington at the time. On the side of support and praise, obviously, Republican lawmakers hailed it as a historic win. President Trump himself called it a big, beautiful victory for taxpayers, families, businesses, really emphasizing making his 2017 tax cuts permanent. Republican leaders argued it would fuel economic growth, incentivize investment, and strengthen national security. And those razor-thin passage margins, just 4 votes in the House, the VP tiebreaker in the Senate, they really underscore the unified Republican support. They needed every single vote they could get, and they got them.
And the business community, conservative groups.
Strong backing there, too. Over 200 organizations reportedly supported it. The National Retail Federation, National Taxpayers Union, big companies like AT&T, Comcast, American Airlines, Delta, they all praised its pro-growth policies. Specific industry sectors that saw benefits were also vocal. The tech and investment sector, like the FDII deduction extension, 3M Company specifically noted its importance for global competitiveness. Agriculture energy sectors welcomed the relief, like the biofuel credit extension or the new coal credit. Even some perhaps unexpected groups, like the International Association of Firefighters and certain manufacturing groups, endorsed it, pointing to the tax reductions combined with support for infrastructure and energy.
So a clear win in the eyes of Republicans and many parts of the business community, but as you said, deeply divisive. Who was on the other side of the fence and what were their core
Well,
objections?
every single Democrat in Congress opposed the bill. They denounced it, really, as a massive giveaway to the wealthy and large corporations. Some called it potentially the largest upward transfer of wealth from the poor to the rich in U.S. history.
The reverse Robin Hood bill nickname.
That was one of them, yes. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer famously, maybe infamously, nicknamed it the We're All Going to Die Act, trying to highlight concerns that the cuts to healthcare anti-poverty programs would have truly dire consequences. Democrats pointed out that millions could lose Medicaid or SNAP benefits because of the new work requirements, that seniors' costs might rise. They hammered the large tax cuts for high earners as unfairly benefiting the rich while offering only temporary or insufficient sweeteners for others.
And what about the fiscal impact? The debt.
Fiscal concerns were huge and extended beyond just Democrats. Economists, budget watchdogs were deeply alarmed by that projected $3 trillion added to the debt. Moody's, the credit rating agency, actually reacted by downgrading U.S. debt from its top AAA rating.
Directly citing this bill.
Explicitly cited the BBB's huge revenue cuts as the direct cause for the downgrade. There were also warnings about potential inflation or interest rate hikes because of the increased debt. And interestingly, even some Republican fiscal hawks were uneasy. Tesla CEO Elon Musk, notably, broke with the administration, condemning the package first as a massive spending bill and later as a disgusting abomination. Senator Rand Paul also voiced significant concerns about the spending and debt.
So even some cracks on the right. What about impacts on inequality or poverty?
Critics hit that hard. They argued it would significantly exacerbate inequality. There was a study, I think, from researchers at Yale and the University of Pennsylvania, warning that the health care cuts, especially to Medicaid, could lead to over 51,000 preventable deaths every year. Child advocates argued that the stricter SNAP rules would inevitably increase hunger among vulnerable families and children. And the environmental side. The energy changes.
Yeah.
Slammed. Environmental groups, green energy businesses just slammed the bill for rolling back those clean energy credits. The Energy Innovation think tank projected over 830,000 clean energy jobs could be lost, significant setbacks for emissions reductions, and potentially even surges in household energy bills down the line.
And there were other controversial non-tax bits too, right? Touching on social issues or culture war aspects.
Absolutely. Women's rights groups strongly decried that one-year block on Planned Parenthood receiving Medicaid funds. Education advocates objected to the student loan caps. And apparently, initially, there was this little notice provision that would have preempted states from regulating artificial intelligence, AI. That caused a huge backlash from tech ethics experts, civil rights groups, even some Republicans like Marjorie Taylor Greene, and reports say it was dropped late in the process to secure enough votes.
Wow, that's a fascinating detail. What about federal workers?
They were strongly opposed. Federal employee unions protested vigorously. The bill included civil service reforms that financially penalized federal workers who chose to keep their traditional job protections, effectively pushing more employees into at-will status where they could be fired more easily. The National Active and Retired Federal Employees Association, NRAFE, called it essentially a 5% pay cut for those workers. And the American Federation of Government Employees, AFGE, blasted the whole thing as a big retaliation bill against federal unions.
Wow, what a journey through the big, beautiful bill. It is crystal clear that this legislation is far, far more than just a tax bill. It's really a profound statement about the direction of the country, wasn't it?
Indeed. What's really fascinating, I think, is how clearly this bill just reiterates that core ideological divide in Washington. Supporters, they credit it with locking in tax relief for families and businesses, boosting U.S. manufacturing, competitiveness, advancing core conservative priorities, stronger border, reduced federal oversight. Critics, on the other hand, argue forcefully that it showers benefits on the rich and corporations while slashing the social safety net, gutting investments in clean energy, and potentially harming the economy's long-term health and America's most vulnerable populations. The narrow, purely partisan passage, It just underscores